buying a Bitcoin, whether it's one Bitcoin or a million Satoshis or 100,000 Satoshis or one Satoshi, is just like buying into New York City 250 years ago.
Today, we're going to be looking at 3 different calculations and simulations to analyze what Michael Saylor just said and prove whether 1 Bitcoin, 0.1 Bitcoin, or even 0.01 Bitcoin is not only enough to retire, but whether it is enough Bitcoin to put you in the top 1% or the new class of millionaires on a Bitcoin standard. And we're going to go even further than just looking at those 3 simulations, because I'm going to prove that this small stack of fiat money that I'm holding right now is going to be enough to not only put you in the 1%, but it might even make you a part of the new billionaire class on a Bitcoin standard. So before we get uber bullish and I tell you exactly how much money I'm holding right now, let's jump straight into the first simulation. So this is my number 1 go-to chart in Bitcoin. What it's doing is it's having a look and it is showing us how much Bitcoin you need to be a part of which class of society. Now, the only row that we are going to be interested in for today's video's purposes is looking at how much Bitcoin you need to be a part of that row that we are calling the new millionaire class. Now, I get it. There's a lot of lines, there's a lot of tables, there's a lot of numbers on this chart, and all the numbers are going to change based upon the 3 simulations that we run. But for this first one, what we're looking at is how much Bitcoin you need to be a part of the millionaire class. You guys can see only 80 million people can hold this specific amount of Bitcoin that we're about to reveal for you. So firstly, before we start really running the numbers on this table, where did it come from? Well, this right here is looking at a Pareto's principle distribution applied to the 21 million Bitcoin total supply. And yes, a Pareto's principle, it is a version of a power law, but the power law we're looking at today actually has thousands of years of data backing it up. We have a lot of data to prove that typically 20% of a population is going to give you around 80% of the results. And this has been proven time and time again for thousands of years to be true in the realm of wealth inequality and total wealth held by a population. Now, this is fascinating because when you do apply a Pareto's principle onto a Bitcoin standard, what you are going to see is that all of those rows below the middle class, despite them making up 85% of the total population, they're only going to hold around 9% of all of the Bitcoin that will ever be created. Don't get me wrong, I know that is crazy, but this is how a Pareto's principle distribution works. So let's actually show you the number that you came for. The first simulation. How much Bitcoin do you need to be a part of this new millionaire class or this new top 1% under this first conservative estimate of there being 16 million coins available for sale? You will notice that in the top left-hand corner of this chart, we are supposing that there's 16 million total Bitcoin available for sale. So this is the more conservative estimate. We're estimating that there are only 4 to 5 million Bitcoin lost, and the rest of the Bitcoin, they will eventually be available for sale. So what we're assuming here is that the 500,000 Bitcoin held by Michael Saylor, they will hit the market one day. And Michael Saylor will flip on what he's currently saying, where he is saying that the Bitcoin held by MicroStrategy, it will be held for 100 years. Okay, some of you guys might know where I'm going with this video, especially when we start talking about the strategic Bitcoin reserves of nation states later on in today's video when we do look at that third simulation. Let's stay grounded, let's stay conservative, let's stay a little bit more bearish and assume that 16 million Bitcoin are available for sale. When we do that, we can see by this table that under this hypothetical situation, if a Pareto's principle distribution is applied onto a Bitcoin standard, there will be 80 million people who will be able to hold 0.06 of a Bitcoin. So that today is around 6% of a Bitcoin, and that is $6,000. And a little bit of a hint or a little bit of a clue, I am not holding anywhere close to $6,000 in my hand right now. Not even close to it, okay? So this final bullish conservative investment, where I show you this amount of fiat, will be enough to put you in the top 1%. Stay tuned for that. But let's kind of think about things a little bit deeper here. Today, there's around 58 million millionaires in the entire world. Now, there is 8 billion people on the planet today. So 1% of 8 billion, it's 80 million people. This is why I love this chart so much, because it's showing you exactly how much Bitcoin you need to be a part of that 1%. Now let's look at the second simulation I've got for you. Some people are going to call this far too bullish. I personally think it's closer to reality than most people think. Before I lose some of you guys and I get into my really bullish assumptions, I just want to show you guys the data today. Right now, 10 million Bitcoin have not moved in the past 5 years. So 5 years ago, the price of Bitcoin was way down at $3,000 per coin in early 2020. Bitcoin had just crashed from $14,000 to $3,800. Then in 2021, we spiked all the way up to $65,000. We crashed back down to 29K. We spiked back up to 69K. Then we crashed by over 75%, all the way down to $16,000 a coin. And right now, in 2024 and 2025, we pumped back up to $108,000 a coin. And at the time of recording, we're just under $100,000 a coin. And throughout all of that volatility over the past 5 years, 10 million coins have not moved. They don't care. They're holding Bitcoin for the long term. So I'm trying to highlight, I believe in the future, there is going to be a large percentage of the Bitcoin supply that will be technically unavailable at most prices. Again, I know it. There's going to be people in the comments already. There will always be sellers of Bitcoin. I agree. There will always be marginal sellers of Bitcoin. But my hypothesis that I'm going to run through on this second simulation, and even more bullish and even more crazy, third simulation, it hinges upon the fact that eventually the retail plebs who have been holding Bitcoin for 10 years, they are always going to be selling some Bitcoin. That is true. But who is the buyer on the other end of that transaction? It is Michael Saylor. It is billionaires. It is pension funds. Today, Michael Saylor has accumulated more than 500,000 Bitcoin. This is nearly 2.5% of the entire supply. And if we take Michael at his word, he says he's not selling this for 100 years. He is price agnostic. And this is just one billionaire out of the 2,500 billionaires who I believe will have to see Bitcoin in a similar light to Michael one day in the future. Again, we're going to get even more bullish at the end of today's video. Second simulation assumes there is 4 million Bitcoin available for sale. I know it's slightly bullish. It's a little bit more uber bullish. I get that, but it's just an assumption. Let's run through the numbers. We can see under this hypothetical scenario, there will only ever be 80 million people who will be able to hold 0.015 Bitcoin. That is 1.5% of a Bitcoin. Today, 1.5% of a Bitcoin is worth somewhere around $1,500. So what I'm trying to tell you guys is that if you agree with the assumption that one day there'll only be 4 million Bitcoin available for sale in the hands of those who want to sell their Bitcoin, a $1,500 investment into Bitcoin today, 0.015 Bitcoin, will put you in the new 1%. It will put you amongst a group of people who there will only ever be 80 million other people who'll be able to hold that amount of Bitcoin. And again, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of clue. I'm not holding $1,500 of fiat in my hand for today's video. I am holding far less than that. And this will be enough to put you in the new class of millionaires and the top 1%, as we're going to show after we get even more bullish. And not only are we going to be talking about just how little money I think you're going to need to get into the top 1% in the future on a Bitcoin standard, but I'm even going to give you guys an actual blueprint for how I would accumulate this amount of Bitcoin today, irrespective of what country you're in. Again, it doesn't matter if you're in Asia, Africa, some of the poorest countries and nations in the world. Even if you're only making $2,000 to $3,000 a year, like a large percentage of the population is making, the blueprint I'm going to be showing you guys today and the DCA stacking goals that I'm going to be showing you guys today is going to actually blow your mind. But before we get to any of that, again, we are showing just how a small amount of Bitcoin in a very rare and select group of people in the future. But I think there is going to be tens of millions, maybe even hundreds of millions of people who don't actually reach the finish line. I don't think they're going to be able to actually recognize and be a part of this top 1% because I think they're going to make a lot of mistakes along the way. I think a lot of people might watch videos like this and they might just drink the hopium and they might just think, I own Bitcoin, I'm safe, I'm going to be a part of the top 1% in the future. But I think so many people are making crucial mistakes today, like not actually custodying their Bitcoin. They might hold IBIT, BlackRock, Bitcoin ETF. They might hold thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, God forbid, even millions of dollars worth of an ETF product or an IRA product that's in their superannuation account, or heaven forbid, they might even hold Bitcoin on an exchange, thinking, yeah, in the future, when my $10,000 of Bitcoin puts me in the top 1%, I trust Coinbase to give me the keys to my Bitcoin. Now, these are just some of the mistakes that I think people are going to make along the way. This is why I believe it's great to be aware of just how much your Bitcoin today could be worth in the future. But all of this entire video is completely useless if you don't own enough Bitcoin and if you're not storing that Bitcoin safely and securely to actually last for generations. This is why I always encourage you guys, look, a 0% allocation of Bitcoin, it's not enough. A 2% allocation of Bitcoin, in my opinion, probably not enough. You guys can come to whatever numbers you think is an appropriate allocation for you and your family. But if you are looking to buy more Bitcoin, I always encourage you guys to check out what the Bitcoin Well is doing, not just because they are the best place to buy Bitcoin, but because they help you avoid the pivotal mistakes that we're talking about in this video. They say, we will not hold your Bitcoin. You need to take self-custody of your Bitcoin. This is why I love the Bitcoin Well. Check them out at the link down below in the description. And once you've bought your damn Bitcoin at the Bitcoin Well, please do not make the pivotal mistake that a lot of you guys are making. Don't hold Bitcoin on an exchange. Don't hold Bitcoin on a phone wallet that's connected to the internet. And for the love of God, I really hope you are not holding Bitcoin, trusting BlackRock and their Bitcoin ETFs. I always encourage you guys, go get a Bitcoin only hardware wallet. Doesn't matter what hardware wallet you get, just get something that is not connected to the internet. And once you've done that, please back up that Bitcoin hardware wallet in a way that will actually last for generations. Please do not write down your Bitcoin 12 or 24 word private key or backup phrase on something as flimsy as this stuff we call money today, paper. Don't do that. Write down your Bitcoin 12 or 24 word backup phrase onto something that's going to last the test of time. Again, so many people don't think about every scenario that could happen in the future. If you have your Bitcoin hardware wallet and your Bitcoin backup words, your 12 or 24 word private seed phrase in the same house, what happens if that house burns down? Well, your hardware wallet's gone, and so is your piece of paper that is supposed to back up your hardware wallet, okay? So a flood, same situation. Hurricane, the same situation. This is why I'm such a big fan of what Stampseed has made. They make these titanium plates for you to actually stamp your Bitcoin 12 or 24 word seed phrase into, so that if you do run into a hypothetical scenario in the future where you lose your hardware wallet or, God forbid, your house burns down, you actually have something that's going to survive the house fire or the flood or the hurricane. And that is the titanium plates that Stampseed makes for your precious Bitcoin wealth. Highly encourage you guys to check out what Stampseed is doing. And if you want to get your hands on some titanium plates, you can get a 15% discount off anything you want to buy from Stampseed with a promo code Luke15. Now, this is such a pivotal mistake most people are making. And again, all of these bullish assumptions are useless if you're not backing up your Bitcoin. But with all that said, let's get into the third bullish assumption I have for you guys today. And like I did before, I gave you the second bullish assumption, showing you how much Bitcoin I think there could be left in the future. I'm going to have to throw some caveats at you because the number I'm going to land on is going to be even more crazy. Some people might even think, Luke, you're a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist. Some people are going to think I am one of those when I show you the final simulation we're about to run. But first, hypothetical thought experiment time. Michael Saylor alone, one billionaire, as I said, he's accumulated 500,000 coins. Look, I mean, there's 2,500 billionaires in the world. There's only enough Bitcoin on exchanges today for another 4 billionaires to do what Michael Saylor has done, and that is buy more Bitcoin than Michael Saylor. Okay, there's around 2 million Bitcoin on exchanges, 500,000 for 4 people, 4 more people. Now, why am I so focused on that number of 500,000? Why would the other billionaires and other corporate companies want 500,000 Bitcoin? Well, that is because in a world where Bitcoin does continue to monetize, and it is the best performing asset for the next 16 years, like it was for the past 16 years. Again, I know, big assumption for those who are new to Bitcoin. They might not believe that assumption. I do believe that is true. Again, only 1% of the world owns Bitcoin today. It's at $100,000 a coin. The other 99% of the world are going to want to buy it. And when they do, there's just not that much Bitcoin left on exchanges. And these billionaires are going to realize in a world where there is still so much of the world that wants to buy Bitcoin, that means the price of Bitcoin is going to have to go up. And that means the man or the company or the woman with the most amount of Bitcoin is going to continue to get richer and richer and richer. And their net worth and their market cap of their company is going to continue to become more and more valuable year after year, like MicroStrategy's. Again, only 5 years ago, MicroStrategy had a $1 billion market cap. I ran the numbers back in 2021. They were something like the 4,000th and 22nd largest company in the whole world. There were 4,000 other companies bigger than MicroStrategy, okay? They were nothing. They were a small company. Today, MicroStrategy has the 7th largest treasury out of 58,000 public companies. They've climbed from 4,000 on the leaderboard, literally a forgotten thought. People were writing articles smearing MicroStrategy 5 years ago, saying they'd failed, they should fire their CEO, their stock price has been going down for 25 years since it burst in the 2000 technology stock bubble crash. And today, they've got the 7th largest treasury in the world. And that's all because of Bitcoin. They simply bought as much Bitcoin as they could, and they held it for 5 years. And they're not going to sell it, if we take Michael at his word. And there are other public companies being forced to do the work and understand this today. Amazon, Microsoft, Google, some of the largest boards in the world are being forced to investigate Bitcoin because of Michael Saylor's meteoric rise. He is now knocking on the door of that #1 most valuable public company position. His treasury is right up there. It's in the top 10 most valuable treasuries in the entire world. And I do think it's only a matter of time before the other billionaires, the other public companies, and even the other nation states who are talking about creating a strategic Bitcoin reserve figure out the fact that you need to hold more Bitcoin than your competitors. When this race begins to escalate and we do just see hundreds of thousands and millions of Bitcoin sitting in the reserves of public companies and nation states, I truly believe that we're going to get into a world where only 1 million Bitcoin really does circulate and is available for the rest of the plebs like us. Now, don't get me wrong, I know how crazy that sounds, but again, we've never seen how an asset with an absolutely fixed supply is going to be adopted. We have no idea what's going to happen. So let's proceed with caution. Let's proceed with our, again, tinfoil hat. Some people's going to call me a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist for running these numbers, but when we do, you can see how really bullish things get. Now, all of a sudden, instead of needing 0.015 Bitcoin, around $1,500 to become a part of this new millionaire class, you actually only need 0.00375 Bitcoin to become a part of this new millionaire class. There will only be another 80 million people who will be a part of this very select group on a Bitcoin standard where we are assuming a Pareto's principal distribution will play out and there's only 1 million Bitcoin available for sale. So how much is that? How much is that 0.00375 Bitcoin worth? It is worth exactly the amount of money, dollars, and Peruvian solas that I have with me today here in Cusco, Peru. It is exactly, at the time of recording, somewhere around $375. Now, again, earlier in the video, I promised it doesn't matter whether you're in Asia or Africa, or whether you're the poorest person on the planet. I'm going to show you the blueprint that shows you how you could accumulate this amount of money. I get it. Some people are surviving on $1 a day, even less. There are billions of people in the world surviving in poverty. But I want to now show you my DCA calculator and my blueprint for how I would be thinking about Bitcoin and squirreling away every dollar or cent I could until I got to this amount, $375 worth of Bitcoin today. Let's jump straight on over to this first DCA calculator. So this is one of my other favorite tools in Bitcoin. This is a DCA calculator. This shows you what would happen hypothetically if you invest $3 of Bitcoin per week into Bitcoin, and what would have happened to that $3 per week investment over the past 3 years of data. Now, again, I'd like to remind you, the past 3 years of data isn't exactly incredibly bullish in the Bitcoin space. If I wanted to really blow your minds, I would have zoomed this DCA calculator all the way back to 2009, 10, and 11, when Bitcoin had its best performing years ever. But since 2021, Bitcoin hasn't really seen a real bull market. It's just been volatile and choppy, to be honest. Right now, we're just under 100K. Literally 3 years ago, Bitcoin was at $65,000, $69,000 a coin. We're only up by 30%. Bitcoin's only really outpaced inflation just by a whisker or by a margin over the past 3 years. So again, I think what I'm showing you right now is ultra conservative. And I do think most people in the world could find $3 and invest that into Bitcoin per week. And if you did that for 3 years, over the past 3 years, today you'd be sitting on somewhere around $470. Now that number should sound familiar because that is more than the amount I just showed you I think can put you in the top 1% of people in the world in the future. But again, time is running out. You are very lucky today because, to be honest, there's probably only going to be another 5 people who watch this crazy video on the internet, and there probably is only going to be another 3 to 5 years where Bitcoin is actually available on exchanges for sale. So if you are one of the 4 people watching this video, again, take advantage of your opportunity today while it lasts. We did recently film a video where we showed that if what just happened last week continues for the next 52 weeks, there's going to be no Bitcoin on exchanges by March 2026. That's right, less than 350 days left. We could enter a realm where there are no Bitcoin on exchanges. And all of a sudden, your chances of accumulating 0.00375 Bitcoin and trading this worthless paper for Bitcoin, those days will run out. Again, who knows if it's going to be a year or 3 years, but I do think it's coming before 2030. And that is simply because of the billionaire FOMO that we are seeing in the Bitcoin space. It's accelerating. Even BlackRock is writing some of the most bullish papers and reports I've ever seen on Bitcoin. And this naturally changes how we should be thinking about Bitcoin retirement. Again, do not think about retiring on Bitcoin or any of these bullish calculations or simulations until you self-custody your Bitcoin. Again, go buy a Bitcoin hardware wallet. I don't have a dog in the fight. Just go get a Bitcoin only one. Once you do, please back up your Bitcoin hardware wallet the way it should be backed up. I like Stampseed. I think you should check them out. Linked down below in the description. And if you do want to learn a little bit more about Bitcoin retirement, I'm going to put 2 videos up on screen that you're going to absolutely love, where I also run some numbers looking at how retirements might change in the future on a Bitcoin standard. With all that said, hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next one.